Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys here this morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I get together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. We use this book, it's titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment, as our foundational text for this program, where each Sunday I go chapter by chapter, helping students to be able to understand the path to enlightenment. Today we're in chapter 15, which is titled True Love, Love Without Attachment. One of the things that the mind has in the unenlightened state is a lack of wisdom. And one of the things that it lacks wisdom about is what is true love. And because of this, people will oftentimes struggle in relationships. If you're having broken relationship after broken relationship, or you're having struggles in your current relationships, this is all can be improved through cultivation of wisdom to understand what is true love. If right now you think that you're falling in love and out of love with people, or if you think that love hurts and love is painful, you're not yet understanding what is true love. And this is one of the reasons why you're experiencing difficulties in your relationships. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to guide you in a meditation session, but then afterwards, I'm going to share this topic with you of true love, helping you to understand what this is, so that now with that understanding, you can practice true love more and more, and you'll experience more and more love in your life. So if you'd like to join for meditation, the way that I start this is with some chanting in order to be able to ease the mind into meditation. It'll help you to actually get more benefit out of the meditation if you decide to chant. If you would like to chant, we have chants over there on the cabinet. They're laminated sheets. You're welcome to help yourself to get one. It's important to understand that during the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. It was used purely as a learning tool, as a learning device, where today we use it as a way to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. The teachings of the Buddha aren't about a bunch of beliefs or rituals or ceremonies. Even if you've seen those things associated with his teachings, those are misunderstandings of what he actually taught. Instead, he's teaching you to learn and grow and develop and become this better individual, moving to this enlightened mental state. What enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will have eliminated all your anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this is occurring through training of the mind. So this individual who we refer to as the Buddha helped people to understand what it takes to be able to move to this enlightened mental state through training the mind. And he used chanting as a way to help his students commit his teachings to memory, because the technology to write things down didn't exist 2,500 years ago. So he needed to use this as a way to help his students to remember his teachings. Well, if you look at these English translations of the chants, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. Because of that, I don't think the Buddha even created these specific chants, because the Buddha wouldn't have walked around and said, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me, right? This would be ego or arrogance. And by the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer see yourself as being above people or below people. You just see everybody as being equal. So the Buddha wouldn't have asked his students or taught his students to chant these things to him. But if you learn from a teacher how to move from anger, sadness, and frustration, and all these other feelings to the peaceful and joyful mental state that is enlightenment, and this person didn't want anything or expect anything from you, they were just helping you out of the kindness of their heart, you'd probably have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. So that's why I think these chants actually came from his students, either during his life or after his death. So you're welcome to chant along if you like, and you'll see that you get much more benefit out of the meditation. Once we're in the meditation, I'll be providing you guidance where I'll be essentially teaching you or instructing you how to meditate while we're actually meditating. Then there's going to be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating. Everyone here at the temple and anybody joining online will just all be meditating at the same time. Now, during this period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by, a dog barking, a bird chirping, someone here might cough or sneeze. This is all normal. But if you're in meditation with a craving for permanent permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you will cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. This is why you can eliminate these discontent feelings, because it's your mind itself that is causing them. Oftentimes people think that it's the outside world that's causing their anger and frustration, but it's actually what's going on within your own mind. That's why you can eliminate it. What the unenlightened mind has is a craving for permanence, but you live in an impermanent world where things are constantly changing in the world around you. So you're not going to be able to meditate in an environment where it's perfectly quiet. Instead, you're going to hear sounds, and those sounds are going to arise, they're going to change, and they're going to fade away. They are impermanent. The whole world around you is impermanent. But with the mind's craving for permanence, when it hears a sound, for example, it can cause itself to be annoyed or frustrated. But if you're in meditation, understanding that the world is impermanent and those sounds that you hear, they're temporary, they're going to arise, change, and fade away, you can understand the world's working exactly the way it was intended to work, and you can be at ease and be completely peaceful when you hear sounds during meditation. So you'll hear occasional sounds as we meditate together. Then afterwards, we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand the topic of true love. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times because your body can't be in the same position permanently. It's not possible. So you need these different positions at different times. It's kind of like having different tools that you use as part of like a tool belt that you assemble. So during various classes, courses, retreats, you can learn these different positions and use them like tools. But what I'll do today is I'll just introduce you to the seated position to give you guys a little bit of guidance on that. And then you can learn these other positions other times. But just understand what I'm going to share with you are just suggestions or recommendations, because there's not just one way to sit, because that would be permanence, and we don't live in that world. Everybody's going to find something different that's comfortable. So you can use something that I'm sharing, or you could come up with something on your own, as long as the body's comfortable. You're not interested in the body being painful or luxurious. You would like the body to be comfortable in the middle. So you could be sitting on the floor or in a chair. Maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or in a wheelchair. You can sit however you like. But if you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This is a nice option because it helps you to be able to sit more comfortably. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just decide to do that lightly, because if they're real tight, it'll impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. Some people like to put their right hand over their left with their thumbs together. This is the way that the Buddha did this, that he put his right hand over his left and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable, you could use it. But again, it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way, because that would be permanence. There's other options here. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up, or you might even rest your hands comfortably in your lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. The same thing's true for anybody who's in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed, so that's an option for you as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. It'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. What meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you're real rigid with the upper body, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back, because not only will it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it'll make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So I'm going to start with the chanting to help ease into the meditation, and then I'll come back in with the guidance. You guys are welcome to join in on the chanting if you like. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Utang Mahakawanang Apiwateyami Savakato Mahakawatamo Namang Namasami Supatipano Mahakawato Savakasangko Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Sama Sambuddho Vicacaranang Samuno Sakato Rokawitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Oto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. สัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาโอตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมดามังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารณังสัมมโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good morning to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. This individual who we refer to as the Buddha figured out over 2,500 years ago how to get to a point where your mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. This comes through training of the mind. The Buddha didn't teach a bunch of beliefs hoping that something would happen when you actually die. Oftentimes that's what you learn, is you learn a bunch of beliefs and you're believing and hoping something good happens when you die. This isn't how the Buddha actually taught. He helped you to be able to go inward, to be able to discover what are the real true causes and difficulties in what you're experiencing in your day-to-day life. And by understanding what those things are, he then provides you the tools and the techniques of how to eliminate it. He figured out how to train his mind to get to this point himself where it's completely peaceful and joyful, and then he spent the rest of his life helping other people to be able to understand how to get to that peaceful and joyful mental state. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to help you to be able to understand one aspect of the path to enlightenment. And that is to understand what is true love. That oftentimes in the unenlightened state, we lack wisdom of what this is. This is the number one problem that the Buddha discovered in the mind in the unenlightened state, is that it lacks wisdom, that it just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. And because of that lack of wisdom, the mind will go around in the world believing certain things, but those things aren't actually true. Because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. But in order to get to this awakened mind, where the mind is actually completely peaceful and joyful, where your mind is focused, you have concentration and clarity and deep memory, where all your relationships are harmonious, both personally and professionally, where you can get to the point where you don't even experience a bad mood anymore. You need to be able to cultivate wisdom. And in order to be able to do that, you need to learn something. You need to investigate it and examine it intellectually. Then you need to reflect on those teachings to be able to see if they're true or false, because you should be able to independently verify the teachings. Then you would like to be able to practice the teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life. The mind in the unenlightened state lacks wisdom about how the world truly functions around you. So the Buddha isn't giving you rules or commandments of telling you what you should or shouldn't do. He's not teaching you rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer. He's not giving you a bunch of things to believe and hoping something good happens when you die. Instead, he's inviting you to investigate and examine his teachings so you can see what is true or false about this world. And now with this newfound wisdom, your mind can move closer and closer to this enlightened mental state. Because when you're experiencing stress, anxiety, anger, and frustration, this is the mind living in a world that it doesn't understand. And when you lack wisdom about the world that you live in, you'll struggle and you'll have difficulties. That's what the stress and anxiety and guilt and shame and fear and all these other feelings are doing for you. And one of the things that the mind lacks wisdom about is this topic of true love. Understanding how to love others without attachment. Right now, if you're falling in love with people and out of love with people, or if you think that love hurts and love is painful, you're not yet understanding what true love is. And because of that, if you're not practicing true love, then that means that you're not going to be able to experience it. The more and more that you understand what true love is and you put that out through your decision making, you'll experience more and more true love coming back to you. So I'm going to help you guys to understand this topic, and I'm going to be pausing a few times, opening up for questions, because that's part of getting to the point where you can understand the teachings of the Buddha, is that you're not going to understand everything the first time. You're going to need clarification. So as you guys have questions, when I pause, we have microphones around the room. There's some in the white bowl there in the middle of the room. We have some up here in the front. All you need to do is get a microphone, take it back to your seat, press the gray button. You're going to see the lights come on. If you hold this up to your chin, we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these, you can keep these microphones with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone with them. And if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll be helpful so we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then anybody who's online, whether you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, if you would like to ask questions, you can put that in the comment section and I'll be able to see it. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like. So the first thing to do in order to understand this topic of true love is to understand what's causing your painful feelings, because oftentimes people think that it's love that's causing these painful feelings. If you've been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife, and you guys break up and you're angry or frustrated, or you're lonely or bored, or you're missing this person, you might think it's your love that's causing that. Or if you've had somebody close to you that has died, and maybe they're no longer in the world any longer, and you're experiencing grief or sadness or sorrow, you might actually think it's your love that's causing this. Or say somebody gets sick or ill, and now you might experience difficulties and struggles with their illness, and you might think it's your love or your care that's causing this. This is part of the lack of wisdom that the mind has in the unenlightened state. So the first thing I'm going to do is be able to help you to understand what is causing your painful feelings. This is something I've already discussed in this program multiple times, but I know many of you guys weren't necessarily here when I was explaining this and helping you to independently verify what's causing your painful feelings. So for some people, this will be a refresher. For other people, this might be the first time you've ever heard this. Oftentimes people think it's the outside world that's causing your discontent feelings, your anger, your sadness, your frustration, and all these other feelings. You might think it's your mom and dad that are causing this, or your brothers and sisters, or your life partner, or maybe your boss, or your friends, or your children, or people like this. If you experience painful feelings, it's actually coming from the mind itself. But you need to be able to see this truth for yourself. You can't believe me. You can't believe others. You can't believe what you currently think about the world that it's the outside world that's causing these feelings. You've got to be able to peer into this and penetrate into it to be able to independently verify it for yourself. So I'm going to introduce you to this in a way that you can intellectually understand it. And then I'm going to invite you to reflect on it, to verify it for yourself. And then you can start practicing and start training your mind so that you can get to the point where you're eliminating the causes and conditions that are producing these feelings, so that more and more you can get to the peace and the joy. So there's a teaching called the Four Noble Truths, which is the very first and beginning teaching of the Buddha, where in 4 simple statements, he helps you to be able to understand what is the problem in your mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. The problem that he discovered, which is the first noble truth, is that the mind experiences discontentedness. What discontentedness is pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. These are called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, your mind is going to experience a feeling. And it's either going to be pleasant, like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria, or it's going to be painful, like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, and others. These are very painful to experience. And then there's neither painful nor pleasant feelings. I consider boredom and loneliness to be neither painful nor pleasant, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you'd like. But shyness is a good example of the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. It's uncomfortable. Or say you're sitting on public transportation and somebody you don't know comes in and sits next to you, and maybe your body's touching their body. You might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, you're just kind of uncomfortable a bit, right? So these are what's called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, your mind is going to experience a feeling, that the mind's going to be happy and excited, but then it's going to be sad and frustrated and angry. And then you're going to be embarrassed and disappointed. And then you'll be shy and frustrated. Your mind kind of bounces around. Of course, you have peacefulness and calm here and there, but it's only a matter of time before your mind becomes irritated or annoyed about something. This is the problem that the mind experiences. And this is what the Buddha discovered, that the mind can't be permanently peaceful and permanently joyful in this unenlightened state. So the first noble truth, which I don't have up here, I taught it in other parts of this program, is that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. This is the problem. The conditioned feelings are a problem because your mind's going up and down and up and down. The second noble truth explains the cause of this problem. This is where you really need to focus to be able to understand what is actually causing these feelings, because the mind, with its lack of wisdom, will firmly believe that these feelings are being caused by something external. But nobody can insert a feeling into your mind. It's physically impossible. It's coming from what's going on in your own mind. And it's explained in the second noble truth. This is the cause of this problem. That discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. I'm going to say that a couple of times, and I'll give you some examples so you can independently verify this for yourself. Those pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant, those are caused by something called craving, desire, attachment, wants, and expectations. The mind is longing, yearning. It's pulling in the direction of the objects of its affection. It's wanting things to be permanent, but yet everything in the world around you is impermanent. The mind chases. This is the craving, desire, attachment. It's like an unquenchable thirst that the mind longs and yearns, thinking something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. The mind thinks, I don't feel good here. What's going to solve this? More money. That'll fix everything. Let me get some more money. So now you'll chase after that with craving, desire, attachment. And if the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy and excited. But then ultimately that fades away. And if you don't get what you want, you get angry or frustrated. And then the mind's like, what do I need? I need to feel better here. What do I need? A new boyfriend, a new girlfriend. That'll fix everything. Let me get one of those. So now you'll chase after that for a while. And if you get your boyfriend or girlfriend, you'll be happy and excited at the beginning, but then that'll fade away and you guys will get angry and frustrated with each other and you'll ultimately break up. But then you're like, what do I need in order to be able to feel happy here? I know what I'll do. I'll go to Thailand. That'll fix everything. Let me go to Thailand. They got mango and sticky rice. They've got elephants. They've got massages. Oh my gosh, Thailand will fix everything. So then you come to Thailand and you're so happy and excited, but then you got to go back home. Now you're, I don't want to go back home, right? And the mind's kind of frustrated or angry. So the mind is looking for something external and it's holding on and craving it to be permanent. And it can only be happy if it gets what it wants and what it expects. So for example, if you look outside and you see it's sunny and you get really happy by that, you'll be happy when it's sunny. That's a conditioned, pleasant feeling. But then when that changes and now it's raining, you'll be sad or frustrated because the mind is holding on to the sun, wanting that to be permanent. And you've based your feeling of happiness on the sun, where the sun is not permanent. And as long as you're basing your feelings on something that is impermanent, then that means your feeling of happiness is not permanent. Or say you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here. Then when it goes down here, you'll get sad or frustrated. The only thing that's happened here is change. Another way to say this is not only that the mind craves permanence, another way to say this is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. When things are changing in your life, your mind doesn't like that. So for example, if you get together with a boyfriend or girlfriend, and when you guys first came together, you might have been really happy and really excited about that. You've got this new person in your life. They're showing you affection. They're calling and checking in on you. Maybe they're inviting you to dinner or movies, or you're going to the park. You're having great conversations. You're going on these nice walks. Maybe you're even having intimate contact and you feel all this pleasure with this new person in your life. But then as time goes on, you guys break up and the relationship's over. And now you're angry or sad or frustrated, or you're lonely or bored, or you're missing this person. This isn't your love that's causing it. This is the mind holding on and craving permanence. As long as the mind's getting what it wants, it experiences happiness. But when the mind doesn't get what it wants and what it expects, it experiences painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, or others. Or take an example like if grandma or grandpa died, or mom or dad or brothers and sisters, someone close to you. As long as they're alive, the mind's getting what it wants, and it's really happy and excited about that. But then when someone dies, the mind is experiencing impermanence. It's experiencing change, and it doesn't like this change. It's not getting what it wants. So now it experiences grief or sadness or sorrow. Again, it's not the love that's causing this. Let me use an example that doesn't involve relationships, and you might be able to see this more closely. And then we'll come back to relationships, helping you to understand that it's not your love that's causing this. Let's just say you bought a brand new car. You've been saving for like 10 years for this brand new car. You've been shoving money under your mattress in your room, and you've been saving all this money, and you finally got enough money to buy your dream car. You go down to the store, you give them the money, you drive off the parking lot. Everyone's like, wow, look at her. She's so successful. Wow, look at him. He's so successful. And you're driving your car, so proud of this car. And you park it at a store and you go inside. And when you come out, there's a scratch on your car. My goodness, you might be so angry or frustrated here. It's not the scratch that's causing this. And it's not the person who scratched your car. They're not the ones who are causing you to be angry. It's the mind craving permanence. That as long as this car is beautiful and the way you want it to be, you're happy. But as soon as you experience some impermanence, something changes with this car, your mind's angry or frustrated. And the fact is that this car is going to change. It's only a matter of time. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. This car is going to deteriorate. Now, I'm not talking about what's wise or unwise, because obviously when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that this car is going to deteriorate. It's only a matter of time. And if you have a craving for permanence, when you experience change with this car, you're going to experience anger, sadness, frustration, and other discontent feelings. So these are just a couple of examples, and I can give you example after example, but it's important for you to be able to see this for yourself. You need to be able to relate this to your own life. This is the independent verification to be able to see that this is true. Because I just shared with you some intellectual understanding about the second noble truth. But you need to be able to independently verify it through your own reflection so that you're not believing me. So take a recent time when you've been angry, sad, frustrated, some other discontent feeling, annoyed. It might have been this morning, yesterday, or last week. Take a look at that situation with these fresh eyes, because what the mind typically does is it tries to blame other people for what you're experiencing. But take a look at it with this new wisdom, this new understanding. What was it that your mind was longing, yearning for? What did you want? What did you expect? And if you would have gotten it, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, the mind was angry or sad or frustrated. And if you can see this, you can have a real breakthrough. You'll be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's not about blame or fault. It's not about any of that stuff. It's just about seeing true reality of what's really, truly going on. Because if you can cultivate the wisdom to see what's truly going on, then you can actually fix it. But if you continue to believe that it's other people who are causing these feelings, you'll never actually apply the solution to be able to fix it, and you'll be angry and frustrated and sad the rest of your life. But there's this better way of life that the Buddha taught, that you can peer into this and see what's truly causing your discontent feelings. Then you can apply this solution and actually fix it. So if you're having difficulty seeing that it's your own mind causing these feelings, that the mind is craving permanence, let me know. Because when the mind lacks wisdom of the second noble truth, what it will tend to do is it will push people away out of your life. You might have pushed away friends or family, or you might have pushed away a certain situation. This is called aversion, where the mind firmly believes the problem is something external, and the mind thinks the way to solve it is to push this person away. Or the second thing you'll do when you don't understand the second noble truth is you will be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear that being into doing things your way. Or the third thing you'll do is you'll tend to put your expectations on people, trying to pressure them or control them to do things your way. And this is the mind trying to get things to fulfill its cravings, because there are certain cravings, desires, attachments in the mind. The mind's trying to create this little bubble where everybody does things your way. And where things aren't happening your way, you'll push those people aside. You'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile to people, or you'll put your expectations on people. And people might be doing this to you too, where they're pushing you away. They're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, and they're putting their expectations on you. This is because the mind misunderstands where those painful feelings are coming from, that it's actually coming from your own cravings, desires, attachments. The mind thinks it's something external, and the mind's trying to fix the external world in order to be able to get its pleasant feelings. But that's not permanent. So you need to peer into this and see that it's your own mind causing these feelings. I had a student contact me one time and they said, David, I'm really having difficulties with what you're teaching. You teach that it's my own mind that's causing these feelings. And I'm sure it's my wife that's causing these feelings. And I said, okay, well, what's going on? What's happening? They said, well, I went to work the other day and I came home and my house was a wreck. She had this craft project all over the house. When I went to work, my house looked beautiful. But when I came home, she had this craft project all over the house. And I walked in and I got frustrated and I got angry. How did my mind cause this? She's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be angry and frustrated? And I said, no, she didn't cause your mind to be angry and frustrated. It was your own mind. You were craving permanence. You went to work with the expectation that your house was going to look exactly the same when you came back home. This impermanence, this craft project is just temporary. It's impermanent. The only thing you've experienced is change. That's all you've experienced. Your house looked a certain way when you went to work, and when you came home, it looks a different way. And that is not permanent either. Eventually, your wife's going to put away this craft project, right? And maybe you even help her, right? So the mind oftentimes has difficulties seeing the truth that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. So I'm going to pause here in a bit. And when I do, if you guys have questions to be able to understand this, let me know. And if you have certain examples from your own life, you're welcome to share that with me. Because once you see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, these painful feelings, you can understand the third noble truth, which the Buddha explains to you, that the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. Sometimes when I say that, people say, well, if I eliminate that longing, yearning, that chasing, won't I swing all the way to the other side where I'll be dull and lethargic and complacent? Well, you might, but that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's teaching you to come to the middle where you can gradually pursue your goals, objectives, or interests with enthusiasm, with ambition, with motivation. And that's something that the mind needs to learn how to do. Because in the unenlightened state, what it does is it chases and chases and chases, and that's where it actually gets its motivation. But you can only chase as long as that craving is there. And then eventually that craving will burn out and your mind will swing to the other side. This is why you've done certain activities, like maybe a certain hobby, or maybe you were into artwork or singing or a musical instrument or martial arts or something like that. And when you first got into this new thing, you were so excited about it and you went at it like 100% and you were chasing after it. But at some point, 6 months, a year, 3 years down the road, you kind of gave up on it because your mind eliminated its craving. And then it swung to the other side and you were disinterested in playing this musical instrument or whatever it is that you were actually doing, some hobby or activity, because you could only continue to do that thing as long as there was a craving in the mind and you were chasing after it. And then you end up swinging to the other side. So the Buddha is teaching you to be able to come to the middle where you can gradually pursue your goals, objectives, or interests with enthusiasm and ambition and motivation. But the mind doesn't know how to do that because it hasn't been trained to do that. And that's something that you need to learn how to do. So this third noble truth is bringing to your attention that there's a solution here, that if you train your mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, you can experience peace and joy. So the mind holds on and it craves permanence. So what you're training the mind to do in the teachings of the Buddha is to let go. And the fourth noble truth is explaining to you that the solution for this is the Eightfold Path. There's a complete, perfect plan called the Eightfold Path that's going to help you train your mind to let go. In fact, that meditation that we just did, that's the purpose of that meditation. And there's other things besides meditation that the Buddha taught. Sometimes people think the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated and instantly got to enlightenment. This is actually a myth. It took him 6 years to get to enlightenment. And it's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that leads to enlightenment. It's not instantaneous. So the mind needs to learn how to let go because it doesn't know how to let go. So when you were focused on the breath and the mind moves off the breath and you let go and came back to the breath, that's what you're training your mind to be able to do because it doesn't know how to let go. And you can verify this third noble truth, that it's true that if you don't have craving, desire, attachment, you won't experience discontent feelings because that person that you broke up with, when you guys first broke up, you were angry, you were sad, you were frustrated, you were irritated or annoyed, you were lonely or bored, you were missing this person. But at some point your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. That you thought, if he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. Or you were like, you know what, if she wants to live in a different part of the world, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. So your mind needs to learn how to let go, but it doesn't know how to do that. And that's where the Eightfold Path comes in. So is there anybody here that has a question to be able to understand the second noble truth or the third noble truth, to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings? Remember, we have the microphones, and for those of you guys online, you can put it in the Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom, and I'll help you. This is important to be able to understand before I teach you about true love, because you need to understand where these painful feelings are coming from. So is there any questions here that you guys have or anything online? Okay, I don't see any questions. Okay, So what the unenlightened mind is doing with its lack of wisdom is that it's misunderstanding what is causing these painful feelings. It will firmly think that it's other people that are causing these, and it's your love. What we tend to do is we tend to meet somebody, and maybe we're interested in them. Maybe we have an affection towards them. Maybe they look really beautiful or really handsome, or maybe they have a lot of money, or maybe they have a certain social status that we're attracted to, or maybe we're attracted to them intellectually. And now we start talking with this person, we get involved with this person, and we start spending time with this person. And at the very beginning of the relationship, everything's going wonderful, because we don't have any expectations at the beginning of the relationship. The only thing we're interested in is getting to know this person. So they're meeting all of our expectations because we don't have any expectations. We're just interested in getting to know this person. So we get all these pleasant feelings at the beginning because we don't have any expectations. We're just getting to know this person, right? And then over time, as we spend time with this person, we ultimately get to a point where we might say to the person, "I've fallen in love with you." And they say, "Oh my gosh, I've fallen in love with you too. Oh my gosh, we're in love now," right? And now we're in love. And now maybe there might even be some sexual contact where there's sex. And this is where the expectations start to come in. And we start wanting and expecting things from this person. We start having these certain things that we want them to do. And if they do things our way, we're happy. We like that. But when they don't do things our way, we get angry or frustrated in the unenlightened state. Now, over time, as this relationship goes on, you end up having so many expectations and you want so many things from this person that they can't fulfill your expectations permanently because the world is impermanent. And now you get so angry and frustrated that you guys break up. Or the other person too, they have expectations as well. They want certain things from you, and they can only be happy if you do things their way. If you don't do things their way, they're angry or frustrated. And this is where there's such conflict in the relationship that you break up. And now you might say, "I have fallen out of love with you. I don't love you anymore." Where at the beginning of the relationship, everything was going wonderful and you had all these pleasant feelings and you said we're in love, and now you start talking to them nice and kind and respectful, maybe giving them flowers and chocolates and inviting them to different events, and you're treating them so wonderfully. But as you guys weren't getting along, where you had certain expectations and they weren't doing things your way, you might have started being angry and disgruntled with this person. You might have started being bitter and hostile and harsh with them, treating them in unkind ways because the mind wasn't getting what it wanted, and it perceived the problem to be external, and it thinks that this person is causing your painful feelings. And this is where the mind will either push people away, it'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, or it'll start putting expectations on this person and trying to pressure them to do things a certain way. And now when you say, "I don't love you anymore, I've fallen out of love with you," now that's where the real anger and frustration comes in, and now you go away from this person. This isn't love. This is a misunderstanding. There's no such thing as conditional love, but let's just call this conditional love for a bit. That as long as you do things my way and you do things the way that I want, I will love you. I will say I love you. I will talk like I love you. I will act like I love you. I will function like I love you. But when you stop doing things my way, when I don't get what I want, all bets are off. I don't love you anymore. I'm not going to treat you that way. I'm going to be angry and bitter and harsh with you. I'm going to be hateful towards you. This is not love. This is craving, desire, attachment masquerading as love. That the mind says, as long as you do things my way, I will treat you a certain way. But when you stop doing things my way, I'm not going to treat you that way. This is craving, desire, attachment masquerading as love. Again, there's no such thing as conditional love, but we might call this conditional love. What the mind is saying here is, I love you, therefore I want you to be with me because you make me happy, right? I love you, therefore I want you to be with me because you make me happy. This is not love. This is craving, desire, attachment. That my happiness is contingent on you. And my happiness is contingent that you do things my way. And if you do things the way I want, I will be happy. But if you don't do things my way, I can't be happy. right? So this is the mind craving permanence. This is not what's going to lead to fulfilling and harmonious relationships. You'll just have broken relationship after broken relationship after broken relationship. At the beginning of the relationship, everything will be going great because you don't really have any expectations. But as you go further and deeper into the relationship, the expectations grow and it becomes more and more difficult to be in this relationship because this person can't fulfill your expectations and you can't fulfill their expectations because they're going to have expectations for you. So there's a better way of life here that the Buddha taught, helping you to be able to understand unconditional love, which is true love, which is love without attachment. Unconditional love allows you to live with all beings harmoniously because you're not functioning through craving, desire, attachment. It's not about, I love you, therefore I want you to be with me because you make me happy. Instead, what unconditional love is, I love you, therefore I would like to see you be well. Understanding that they are responsible for their own wellness, but it's not about me. It's not about you doing something for me, and I can only be happy if you do things my way. That's the selfishness. That's what we call conditional love, even though there's no such thing. That it's really craving, desire, attachment. Instead, you need to get to the point where you don't have expectations, where you're longing, yearning, and wanting other people to be a certain way, and then you're pressuring them or trying to control them to do things your way. Because as long as you're doing that, it's not possible for people to do things your way. It's not possible for everybody to do things your way. In fact, there's only one person in the world that actually does things your way 100% of the time. Do you know who this person is who does things your way 100% of the time? Some of you guys know. Who does things your way 100% of the time? Yourself. Right? You're the only one who does things your way 100% of the time. So if you can only love people who do things your way, there's only one person in the world that you can love. And you might actually have problems doing that from time to time, right? Because you're putting expectations on yourself, right? Wanting yourself to do things a certain way. And you can't fulfill those expectations all the time. So you might actually have anger and hatred and ill will towards yourself, where you have this inner dialogue where you're talking negative and degrading and diminishing to yourself. You can get rid of all of that. You don't have to walk around with that. But you need to understand what true love is. You need to be able to separate the choices and decisions that people make from the person themselves, so that you can love the person while disagreeing with their choices and decisions. I usually talk about this or ask this question whenever I teach this topic. I'd like to ask this question. I've never had anyone raise their hand, but maybe someday somebody will raise their hand. Is there anybody in here that has ever agreed 100% of the time with everything your parents ever did? Is there anybody? I'm just showing you to raise your hand. I didn't agree with my parents. Did anybody agree with their parents 100% of the time? Nobody, right? So if you can only love people who do things your way, then you can only love yourself. We need to understand that everybody's had different experiences. Everybody's done things differently in the world. We've had different experiences. We've learned different things. We've grown up in different ways. There's a lot of impermanence in this world. But what the mind does is it craves for everybody to do things a certain way. And you can only be happy when people do it that way. And now when people don't do things your way, you'll get angry and frustrated. You'll push people away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, and put expectations on them. I know that I did this growing up, put an enormous amount of expectations on my mom. I was so angry with my mom growing up because she'd never do things the way I wanted her to do it. And I kept trying to change her. That's what we typically do in relationships, is we try to change the other person. We think the difficulties and struggles that we have in our own mind, the painful feelings, we think it's coming from something external. So we try to change the other person, and we try to force this other person to do things our way. Right? And it never works, right? This other person isn't going to do things your way. So you need to let go. Train the mind to understand impermanence and get rid of these expectations. Understanding that you can disagree with the choices and decisions that someone is making while still loving the person. To love somebody means to have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. That's all love is a genuine interest in seeing them be well. Understanding that they are responsible for their own wellness. It's not you that's responsible for other people to be well. If someone's going to be well, it's up to them to be able to make those decisions. I'm sure you've been in knockdown, drag out arguments before, where you've been trying to adamantly convince people to stop doing what they're doing, or else you're going to continue to get angry and frustrated. But remember, it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. So when you see other people struggling, you might struggle. You might have difficulties because you're craving for this person to be permanently well, permanently healthy, permanently peaceful. So when you see mom and dad struggling, or you see brothers and sisters struggling, or you see them headed towards a decision that is different than the way you would make that decision, you might actually try to step in and try to convince them to make that decision in the same way as you. But you need to be able to understand that they are their own person. They are their own being with their own experiences and their own wisdom and their own way of doing things. And if they're going to experience wholesome results or unwholesome results, it's going to come from decisions that they make. And you can't force your way on other people, because they're going to resist that, and they're going to resent the fact that you're trying to pressure them to do things your way. So what the mind will tend to do is it will struggle where it sees these people that you're close to headed towards something that's difficult and that you think they're going to struggle, and you think it's your love that is causing you to experience those painful feelings, and you think the way to show your love is to try to convince this person to do it your way. Where in reality, it's the mind trying to get its cravings fulfilled. It's trying to get everybody to do things your way, where you've got to understand the world is full of impermanence and people are going to do things differently, and that's okay. And then when you can get to unconditional love, you can actually love everybody. You can love everybody, even before you meet them. I love every single one of you. I have a genuine interest in seeing you be well. Understanding you are responsible for your own wellness, but I have an interest in seeing you be well. I have active goodwill towards you. That's why I'm willing to come here each day and share these teachings with you. I don't want anything from you. I don't expect anything from you. I'm just here sharing with you out of the kindness of my heart, because I know that walking around with this unenlightened mind is very difficult. It's very much a struggle, broken relationship after broken relationship. So you can love someone unconditionally, meaning you don't want anything from them. You don't expect anything from them. And that's what it means to love someone unconditionally. But the challenge is that we've typically grown up in environments where that's not what we're experiencing. Because of the lack of wisdom in the world, what we tend to experience is our parents putting expectations on us. And as they put expectations on us, we understand that these are people that are supposed to love us, but we're getting all these expectations and we think that that's the love. So now when we get into a relationship, we tend to put expectations on other people. So I'm sure your parents love you. They have unconditional love in their mind, but it gets polluted with cravings, desires, attachments, wants, and expectations, where they might want you to work at a certain job, or they might want you to have a life partner, or they might want you to have children, or they might want you to live in a certain area. And they're putting these expectations on you and trying to control you because they think they're going to get pleasant feelings if they can just get you to do things their way. They're struggling with this too. So this person who's supposed to love you unconditionally is putting expectations on you. And now that's what our mind experiences. And our mind thinks that that's what love is. So when we get into relationships, we tend to do the same things. We tend to put expectations on people and try to control them and pressure them to do things our way. But you need to be able to see this better way of life so that you can get those cravings, desires, those wants and expectations out of the way, and your true love can shine through more and more. And now more and more people can experience your true love, that you love them without attachment, that you love them without expectations. And as you practice that more and more, that's what you'll experience coming back to you. But as long as you are practicing this conditional love, even though it's not love, that's what you're going to get back. If you can only treat people well if they do things your way, well, you're going to have a bunch of people in your life that are only going to treat you well if you do things their way. So you're going to need to learn how to love all beings unconditionally, where you don't want or expect things from people. And you understand that people are making decisions in their own way. And you're going to need to train your mind to separate those choices and decisions they make that you can disagree with those while still loving the person. So I don't suggest you do this, but let's just say you went out and killed somebody today and you called me from jail and you said, hey, David, can you come see me? I need your help. I've killed somebody. Okay, sure. Where are you at? Right? I'd come to see you, right? I can disagree with your choice and decision. I wouldn't have murdered somebody, but I can still love you, meaning I have an interest in seeing you be well. There's no need to be angry or frustrated or irritated or any other discontent feeling just because of a decision that you made. But if you disagree with this decision and you have a craving for that person to make decisions the same way as you, you'll be angry and frustrated. So you've got to separate the choices and decisions so you can still love the person. And you can do this with your parents, with your life partners, with your children, with your boss, with your coworkers, where you can understand, of course, they make decisions differently than me because they've had different experiences and because the world is not permanent. Oftentimes we think there's only one right way to do things, and it's our way. Right? That's what the ego thinks. My way is the right way. Everyone else's is the wrong way. So when I see mom and dad doing it in a way that's different than me, I've got to step in there and make them do it my way, or brothers or sisters or life partners. So you need to be able to understand that the world's full of impermanence and people are going to be making decisions differently than you, and eliminate these expectations. And more, you're going to get to a point where you're practicing true love, where you have a genuine interest in seeing everyone be well, understanding that they're responsible for their own wellness. So I'm going to pause here and see what questions you guys might have before we talk about some of these other things, these other relationships. Do you guys have any questions on what true love is, what unconditional love is? No questions? Yes, ma'am. You have a question? If you could get a microphone, we have some right here. Oh, is that Keisha? Hey, Keisha.
Hello? Okay.
Yep.
Does it change when you're responsible for somebody else, like a kid? So you might want to see them make wise decisions, but as they're growing up, like, I guess, how would you guide them without putting expectations on them?
Sure. So whenever you have wants, that's the craving, desire, attachment. You can only be happy when you get what you want. So you need to be able to understand that there are ways to go through the world wisely. There's always more than one wise way to do things, but you need to be able to guide someone like a child, right? So you don't put expectations on them, but instead you guide them. So for example, I have a young son, you know this, he's 13 now. Well, when he went through school, and he's still going through school, but when he was going through school, there was a period of time where he brought home grades and he had grades that were less than perfect, right? He had like F's, which is like the worst grade you could get in a class, right? And when he comes home and I see this on his report card, instead of being angry and frustrated and yelling and hollering and telling him how horrible he is and all this kind of stuff, instead it's like, he's made some unwise decisions here. What are the unwise decisions that he made? Let's figure this out, right? So now you start talking to your child and you start having conversations with them. Hey, I see you have an F on your report card. What happened? What decisions did you make that led to this F? And then you listen and you ask them more questions and you try to understand. Okay, now you understand that. Now you go talk to the teacher. Right? You might need to talk to the teacher because you need to guide this child to be able to get good grades, but you're not interested in putting expectations on them or trying to control them, right? So now you maybe go talk to the teacher and you find out with the child what happened here so the child can learn, right? So now the teacher tells you all the reasons why they got an F. And now you compare this. And now you sit down and make sure that the child understands how to make improved decisions so that they can get improved grades, but without pressuring them, without controlling them. And now when you sit down with them and you talk to them and they fully understand what it is that they need to do, now they go off for the next term and they start making decisions. They still might come home with an F. That's what my son did. I did all of that. And he still went to school and he still came home with an F. Right? So now we have more conversation. We talk some more. But yelling and hollering and screaming and pressuring this kid isn't actually what's going to produce the beneficial results. You need to be able to guide them to make wise decisions. And the only way they can make wise decisions is if they cultivate wisdom. So your role as a parent, you're not necessarily responsible for your kid. That's what we do. We take responsibility because there's only one thing in the world that we actually have to do, that is actually to die. Right? So there's certain parents that don't actually accept responsibility for their children, right? They choose to do other things, right? So the only thing we truly have to do in the world is actually to die. But what we tend to do, a lot of us, is when we have a child, is that we're invested in seeing that child be successful with having good grades and getting an education and these kinds of things. And you need to be able to do this without expectations, without forcing, without controlling, but instead through discussion. And that's what's going to guide them to improve decisions. And where you see they're lacking wisdom, you help them to cultivate that wisdom. And you're going to need to be patient and understand that just because you taught them something once, they're not going to necessarily implement it right away and start making those decisions. So this whole situation in the past with my son, where he was getting less than perfect grades, I did all this discussion, did all this talking with him and the teacher, and he still got an F. Right? But then slowly but surely, he started making wiser and wiser decisions. It took a lot of patience to be able to guide him and help him to see what those decisions are. And even now, there's still things that he's doing that are not the best decisions. And I need to guide him in a way that helps him to be able to see better decision making. But yelling and hollering and screaming doesn't do that, and putting expectations on him doesn't do it. So you can have in your mind the goal that you would like your child to have certain grades, but then instead of driving them and pressuring them and trying to control them to get those grades, instead talk with them, guide them, help them to be able to see the wise decisions that lead to that objective, helping them to see why it's important to even have good grades. So this is how you would do that. And you do this without expectations, because the moment you set an expectation, because of impermanence, they're going to sometimes meet that expectation and they're sometimes not. And as soon as you set an expectation in your mind, you're sabotaging your ability to be peaceful and happy and harmonious, because they're not going to meet those expectations permanently. So you need to be able to have goals and objectives that your child works towards, and you guide them towards those goals without this hard expectation and what you want from this person. You're welcome. Okay. So, yes, ma'am.
Hello. I've learned about like the personal love that, but there's a question that I can't deal with myself, figure with myself about a close relationship with my the wrong people, like my parents, like my friends, like my boss. But what if there is a long distance love? For example, I got a lot of like sympathy about the war, about the.
Yeah, the microphone's impermanent. The batteries must have went out.
Hello? Okay. And about the rules, about the class and the capacity, how to deal with that. And I know if we have no attachment with that, that will be cold. So I don't know how to deal with that when I saw all those news around the world.
Yeah, so your perception that it would be cold to not have attachment, that's the lack of wisdom that the mind has. You're not fully understanding what attachment is, and you're not understanding where these emotions are coming from. These emotions aren't coming from your care and your love. Those emotions that you're experiencing when you see a war, for example, is coming from your craving, desire, attachment. Obviously, it's unfortunate that there's any kind of fighting or killing or warring in the world, but you don't have control over that. You don't have the ability to stop that. You didn't start that war, so you can't stop it, right? If there's something that you have going on in your life, you have the full ability to influence the outcome of that. But what other people choose to do, you don't have the ability to influence that. Those are other people choosing the war. And the fact that the individual would choose not to be angry or frustrated or having some other discontent feeling like sadness because of a war doesn't mean that they're cold. It just means that they understand true reality. that their mind isn't craving permanence. If you crave permanence and you want and long and yearn for things in the world to be a certain way, well, you can only be happy when the world functions according to you. But the world's not going to function according to you. It's going to function according to these natural laws. And when you understand these natural laws, you can maintain your care and your concern while eliminating your discontentedness. So I have care and concern about every single human being in the world, every single animal in the world, every single being in this world. I have care and concern for those beings. That's why I choose to do what I do, which is come here and share these teachings with people without any expectation of anything in return. But I don't have any discontentedness. I don't get angry and frustrated if someone does things differently than what I think would be wise, right? So you need to be able to eliminate this craving for the world. The Buddha refers to it as craving and worry for the world. That if you're craving and having worry for the world, it's because you don't understand the natural laws and how the world's truly functioning. And now, because the world's not functioning according to what an individual wants, they will be angry and frustrated. But when you understand how the world actually functions, now you can be peaceful and joyful because you understand how the world functions and you're not longing, yearning for it to function your way. Instead of trying to change the world, so to speak, what you would be wise to do is understand the world and how the world actually functions through these natural laws. And that's what will get you to the peace and joy, because you can see the world's functioning exactly the way the Buddha describes it. Okay, so far what I'm doing with you guys is I'm helping you to understand what love is, right? In terms of the tools and the techniques to get these expectations and these cravings and this longing, yearning out of the mind, that's something that I've already taught in this program through the Eightfold Path and other things. So some of you guys haven't learned those tools and techniques. Meditation is just one component of what you need in an overall practice to be able to fully train your mind to get these cravings, desires, attachments out of the way so your true love can shine through more and more. So here I'm just helping people to understand what is true love and helping them to be able to relate something that I've taught previously. And one of the things that people have difficulties doing oftentimes is loving themselves. You might have this negative dialogue in your mind, this degrading and diminishing inner dialogue where you're talking in unkind ways to yourself. Well, you can eliminate this. And the way that you do this is through the tools and the techniques that I've shared previously, which is the Eightfold Path. That's the core central teaching that you need to apply in order to be able to train your mind to get rid of this longing, yearning, and craving for things to be a certain way. Because what you'll tend to do is you'll tend to adopt expectations within your own mind and putting pressure on yourself to be able to perform a certain way. Especially if you have other people around you that are constantly telling you, you should do it this way and you should do it that way and you got to do it that way and you've got to do it this way. You might actually adopt those expectations of yourself. And now when you set that expectation, you're going to fall short of that. Or you're going to work really, 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 really hard, exhausting yourself, tiring yourself, working up to that point where you finally get to meet your expectations. And then your expectations are going to change. And you're going to want more. You're going to be happy for a period of time, maybe like a week or two or a month or two, because you've met your expectations, but then your expectations are going to change, right? So if you put expectations on yourself, you're not loving yourself. You need to be able to have goals and objectives that you gradually work towards and understanding that you're not always going to meet these goals and objectives. If you have a certain goal and you accomplish it and you're happy about that, and you don't accomplish it and you're sad or frustrated, that's actually not a goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment masquerading as a goal. A true goal is something that you can gradually work towards and you can maintain your happiness, you can maintain your joy, whether you accomplish it or not. If you're 80% of your way towards a goal and you haven't met your goal, if it's a true goal, you can look at that goal and say, I haven't met this goal yet. You know what? Maybe I'll give myself some more time. Let me extend the timeline. Let me give myself an extra month or an extra 3 months or an extra year to be able to accomplish that goal. And you can maintain your happiness and maintain your joy and now continue to work towards that goal. Or you can say, you know what? If I add some more resources to this, if I add some more funds or if I add some more supplies, maybe I can accomplish this goal. And now you can maintain your peace and your joy. You can continue to make wise decisions to be able to accomplish that. Or you can look at the goal and you can say, 80% of the way there. You know what? I don't need to go any further. 80% is plenty. I don't need to actually complete this goal. I've actually gotten 80% of the way there, and that's all I need to do. I'm done with this, right? And now you can maintain your peace and your joy. But if you have a craving, desire, attachment, if you have wants and expectations, and you're chasing after something, you can only be happy if you get what you want. And that's sabotaging your ability to have love for yourself and have peace for yourself. So you like to be able to get rid of this expectations that you're putting on yourself and learn how to set true goals, work towards them, understand that you're not always going to meet them, and that's okay. And now you can just gradually work towards these goals and sometimes accomplishing them and sometimes not. But either way, you're making wise decisions to move your life forward. It's just not going to happen in the time frame or in the way that you think it might happen. So this is how you can love yourself. The same thing with parents and caregivers. We oftentimes put expectations on other people, wanting and expecting them to be a certain way. And when they're not that way, we have difficulties and struggles in our relationships. You might have a strained relationship with your parents or other people, maybe your grandparents, your aunts and uncles. Even though maybe your brothers and sisters aren't included in parents and caregivers, you can see that maybe you have difficulties in those relationships. This is from the expectations. You need to be able to get those out of the way. And it's the Eightfold Path that's going to help you to do that. The Buddha has this great teaching where he talks about parents and what it would be wise to do with parents, because he thinks about it as terms of like this debt of gratitude that we have towards our parents. Because even though you maybe have disagreed with certain things that your parents have done, nonetheless, they did actually help you to get to this point where now you're an adult and you can sustain your life. They've at least given you enough food, clothing, shelter, and medical care, and enough understanding of the world that you're now self-sufficient and you're independent of your parents and you can make your own decisions in the world. So when we were early in life, when we were brand new to this world, we didn't have that. We didn't have the ability to go out into the world and acquire our own food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. So no matter how much we either agreed or disagreed with our parents, at least they gave us enough support that we were able to, at this point, be self-sufficient. And we were able to sustain our life long enough to become self-sufficient. So there's kind of like this debt of gratitude that the Buddha talks about in some of his teachings, where here, this is an interesting teaching, so I'll share it with you. This is the original words of the Buddha, where he's talking about this kind of way to repay our parents for this debt of gratitude. It's called repaying one's mother and father. Monks, there are two persons that cannot easily be repaid. What two? One's mother and father. Even if one should carry about one's mother on one shoulder and one's father on the other shoulder, and while doing so should have a lifespan of 100 years, live for 100 years, and if one should attend to them by anointing them with balms and massaging, bathing, and rubbing their limbs, they even void their urine and excrement there, one still would not have done enough for one's parents, nor would one have repaid them. Even if one were to establish one's parents as supreme lords and rulers over this great earth, abounding in the seven treasures, one still would not have done enough for one's parents, nor would one have repaid them. For what reason? Parents are of great help to their children. They bring them up, feed them, and show them the world. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a second. What the Buddha is saying is if you literally carried your mom on one shoulder and your dad on the other shoulder, and you live for 100 years, and during this period of time, you were bathing them, you were rubbing their limbs, you were massaging them, you were cleaning up their urine and their excrement, he's saying you haven't done enough for your parents in order to repay them for this debt of gratitude. He says even if you establish them as supreme lords and rulers over the entire land, and you give them all this treasure and all this material objects, you still haven't done enough for your parents, because those things are all material. material. Those things arise, they change, and they fade away. They are impermanent. You haven't really truly benefited your parents in the best way that you could help them. So he goes on to explain the way that we could truly actually help our parents and repay this debt of gratitude. He says, but monks, if when one's parents lack confidence, one encourages, settles, and establishes them in confidence. If when one's parents are unwholesome, one encourages, settles, and establishes them in virtuous behavior or moral conduct. If when one's parents are selfish, one encourages, settles, and establishes them in generosity. If when one's parents are unwise, one encourages, settles, and establishes them in wisdom. In such a way, one has done enough for one's parents, repaid them, done more than enough for them. So what he's talking about here is actually helping them get closer and closer to this point where their mind is completely peaceful and joyful, making progress on the path to enlightenment. Because when he says, when one's parents lack confidence, they settle and establish them in confidence. What he's talking about is confidence in him, in his teachings. Because what you'll eventually get to, if you learn and practice these teachings close enough, is you'll be able to independently verify that they're true and they're actually working to improve the condition of your mind in your life. When you first start, of course, you don't know that information, but 3 months in, 6 months in, as you get going more and more, I've had some people been able to verify a lot of the teachings within the first few days, and they can see that it's improving the condition of their mind in their life. And now more and more, you'll be able to see that these teachings 100% work, and you'll have confidence in these teachings. And as you do, and you realize that it's actually working to eliminate your anger and sadness and frustration, and your relationships are improving, because there'll be certain situations that you were once angry and frustrated in before, and you'll have those same situations and you won't be angry and frustrated anymore. You'll see your mind's quite peaceful. Well, you'll know it's these teachings that are actually helping you to be able to experience that, and you'll have more and more confidence in the teachings. And as you do that, the Buddha says it would be wise for you to help your parents to be able to gain that confidence too. But you don't do that by pressuring them or putting expectations on them. You might suggest things to them. The way that I've done this with my sister, even though we're talking about parents, I've done this with my parents as well, but I'll tell you how I do it with my sister, or have done it. My sister sometimes struggles with different things, and she will come to me and she'll tell me, David, I'm having this problem or that problem and this problem or that problem, and this is what's happening at work and this is what's happening with my family. And I'll say, the Buddha has a really good teaching that would help you with that. And then I just pause and I wait and see if she says anything, because I'm not interested in giving unsolicited guidance, and I'm not interested in pressuring her or trying to force her or put expectations on her to learn and practice these teachings. So I'll just say, the Buddha has a really great teaching that would help you in that situation. And then if she's interested, she will speak up and she will say, well, what is that teaching? And then I'll share it with her, and now she's open to it. But if she doesn't speak up and say, hey, what is that teaching? Then I don't share it with her, right? So establishing someone in confidence in the Buddha is you first having confidence through investigating the teachings enough. And then where people need help, you could potentially do things like this. This next one, he talks about when someone is unwholesome, that you establish them in virtuous behavior. You might see your parents doing things like stealing or having sexual misconduct or lying or taking substances that cause heedlessness, things like this. There's all kinds of different unwholesome moral conduct that if you learn the teachings of the Buddha, you will see this cause and effect relationship between the way that you function through your moral conduct and what you experience in your day-to-day life. If you're making unwise decisions about the way you interact with other beings, then you're going to experience unwholesome results. So if your parents are, say, stealing or having sexual misconduct or lying or taking substances, this is going to produce difficulties in their life. And if you see that, the Buddha teaches you that it's wise to be able to help them. But you can only do that so much, right? You can't force them. You can't control them. You can't pressure them. You can't put expectations on them, but perhaps you find ways to help them. I'll give you an example of this. My grandparents, I grew up with spending a lot of time with them, and they were born in the 1920s in the USA. And they grew up in a very different time than me. They grew up at a time where if you had one color of skin, you would drink out of one water fountain. If you had another color of skin, you would drink out of another water fountain. And if you had one color of skin, you would go through the front door of the restaurant and you would get a meal. And if you had another color, you would go in the back of the restaurant and you'd get a meal there. So every once in a while, as I would spend time with them, I would hear things that they would say that I would consider to be racist, right? And I would say, Grandma or Grandpa, why do you think that way? Those people are just like us. We don't need to think of those people in that way, right? And then I would just kind of talk with them and have conversations with them. And this would help them to be able to see their thinking was unwise. And slowly but surely, over the course of their life, they got to the point where they didn't think that way anymore, especially when their granddaughter was having children from other ethnicities, and my son, his mom is Thai and things like this. They started realizing like, hey, this idea of racism, it doesn't work. We shouldn't have those thoughts about other people. So slowly but surely, they were able to experience more and more virtuous behavior and think differently and function differently. But that came from me helping to settle and establish them in this virtuous behavior, seeing that they were making unwise decisions, not putting my expectations on them or trying to control them, but just having conversations with them. And one of the ways to do this is to ask questions. Hey, Grandma, why do you think that way? What is it that makes you think that way about this person? And then she'll speak. And I'll say, well, I don't think that way. And she'll say, well, how do you think? Well, I think that these people are just human beings just like all of us, and we don't have to have hatred towards them just because they have a different color of skin than us, or because they were born in a different place than us. And this is a way that you could help somebody to establish them. So you need to be very skillful in the way that you help people like this. The Buddha says when your parents are selfish, that you help establish them in generosity, because generosity trains your mind to let go, just like the meditation. When you focus on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and come back. Well, when you give and share with people around you, this also trains your mind to let go. Because with craving, desire, attachment, you'll be somewhat selfish. You'll hold on to things very tightly. My money, my phone, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my jewelry, my clothes, mine. But when you practice generosity, you're training your mind to let go. So you can actually encourage and settle and establish your parents in generosity. Where you see they're being selfish, you might suggest to them to be generous in certain situations. And this is going to help improve the condition of their mind, because they'll have less craving and their mind can let go and experience more peace and more joy. And that's a wonderful gift to give to your parents. And then lastly, the Buddha talks about when they're unwise, to establish them in wisdom. So the more that you cultivate wisdom about this path and you understand the wise ways to train the mind to get to this enlightened mental state, you might decide to help them to cultivate wisdom. Again, without expectations, without trying to pressure them or control them, you need to be skillful in the way that you do this. So the Buddha says this is the way to repay our parents, not by giving them material possessions and not by rubbing their limbs, even though we might do those kinds of things. But the best way that we can really repay them is oftentimes children learn things that their parents don't understand. And now we can give them that wisdom back. And that's a way to repay them for all that things that they did for us when we were a child, to be able to clothe us, to feed us, to be able to help us get an education, and all the other things that parents do that perhaps we might decide to help our parents too. But you need to do this in a very humble way. When me and my wife did this with her mom, we would oftentimes have her mom sit on a sofa and we would sit down on the floor and we would actually talk to her mom and we would try to help her to be able to see wise decision making. And oftentimes her mom didn't agree with us and she didn't do what we suggested, but at least we tried. That's repaying the debt of gratitude. It doesn't mean that they will absolutely start making decisions in the way that you're trying to help them make decisions, but at least you can try to help them. And you need to do this in a way that doesn't involve putting expectations on your parents. So this is something that you could learn. And then in terms of a life partnership, the life partner that you select, you're going to need to make wise decisions about who to involve in your life. And you're going to obviously be interested in having true love towards this person. Who you choose to select as a life partner is going to have significant impact on your life. And you would like to make sure that you choose wisely. If you had a company that you were investing millions and millions of dollars into, and now you needed to be able to hire people to run this company for you, well, the CEO of your company is going to probably make this company live, breathe, or die, right? And your choice of who you choose as the CEO of this company is going to be very impactful to running and operating this company, whether you experience a return on your investment for the millions of dollars that you've invested in this company. Well, you would probably take your time with that decision, and you would really make sure that you're making a wise decision about who to hire as the CEO of your company. Well, there's this position in your life, this person as a life partner. This is a very important position in your life, and who you choose to be in this position is going to impact your life, either positively or negatively. And you would like to really take your time to make a wise decision about who you choose to be in your life. There's three main criteria that you really need to look for in a life partner. And then there's some subsidiary things that you need to look for too. You need to cultivate loving kindness, and you need to have this genuine interest in seeing your partner be well, where you don't put expectations on them, but you do need to look at certain criteria, not in a judgmental way, but you need to have kind of a baseline criteria to make sure that you guys can be successful as a couple. If you don't have these three things yourself, and if your partner doesn't have these three things, you guys aren't going to be able to create a wonderful life together. The first thing that you need from a partner is that you need this partner to understand that they are not perfect, that they are a work in progress, that there's certain growth and development that they need to do, that if they experience anger and sadness and frustration, they are not a perfect human being, that they're not perfect. The second thing you need in a relationship with a partner is you need them to not blame you for the feelings that they're experiencing. If they're blaming you for the feelings that they're having, they're not understanding that it's their own mind that's causing these feelings. And now they're going to try to pressure you and control you to do things their way, or they're going to be bitter and harsh and hostile to you, or eventually they're just going to push you aside and the relationship's going to be over and they're not committed to the relationship. And the third thing you need for yourself and with a life partner is you need to be willing to get help. You need to be able to have mentors or teachers, people that understand how to live this better way of life that I'm talking about, so that then you can get the help that you need to grow and develop, become a better and better person yourself, and your partner can become a better and better person themselves. If you have the opposite of these three things, you're not going to be able to be successful in a relationship. So if your partner thinks that they are perfect and everything that they do are perfect, if they're blaming you for the feelings that they're experiencing, and they're not willing to get help to improve and become a better and better person, they're stuck. They're stagnated. You're never going anywhere with that person. They're not going to be an individual who's going to learn and grow and develop because they think they're perfect. They're blaming you for all their problems and all their feelings, and they're unwilling to get help. So you need to be sure that you have these three qualities yourself, and that your partner has these three qualities, that you understand you're not perfect, that you don't blame others for the feelings that you experience, and you're willing to get help, and you're willing to do this inner work to become a better and better person. Because getting to enlightenment is to evolve to this higher consciousness and become a better and better person. And the Buddha is giving you the guidance of how to do that in a way that you can independently verify. So these are some of the things that you need in a life partnership. Some other things that the Buddha teaches that you need in a life partnership is you need to have giving, where in your relationships, you're practicing generosity. With your life partner, with your parents, with your siblings, you're going to need to practice generosity in these relationships. You're going to need to have what the Buddha calls endearing speech, where you speak to people in loving and warm and gentle ways. He gives you guidance on this in the Eightfold Path. Then you're going to need to have good, wholesome moral conduct, where you're interacting with people in wise ways, that you're not causing harm to others. You can't cause people to be angry and frustrated, but you can cause them harm. If you cause harm to their physical body, to their material possessions, or their reputation, there's going to be harm that comes back to you. So you'd like to have good, wholesome moral conduct through your speech and your actions, that you're not causing harm in your relationships. And then the fourth thing that the Buddha shares that you need in every relationship is you need equality, where you think of everybody as being equal. Whereas if one person thinks of themselves as being above the other, you're not going to be able to have a harmonious relationship. So these are the four things that the Buddha teaches that every harmonious relationship needs to have. Is you need to have generosity, you need to have endearing speech where you speak to each other in warm and gentle ways, and the Buddha teaches you how to do that. Then you need to have good, wholesome moral conduct in the way that you interact with people, that you're not causing harm, and that you think of everybody as being equal in their relationships. That if you put yourself above or below people, it's not going to promote the mindset that you need to have a harmonious relationship, because you're either going to put yourself below this person and you're going to fear them, or you're going to put yourself above them and you're going to talk down to them. Instead, you need to think of everybody as being equal. But your mind has other plans for you. There's certain pollutions that are in your mind that's going to make it very difficult for you to do these types of things. So that's where the Eightfold Path comes in. The Buddha teaches you how to train your mind actively to get rid of the pollutions that are hindering you from being able to have endearing speech, from being able to have things like wholesome moral conduct, or from being able to think of everybody as being equal. So that's why it's important that you really, if you haven't already, go back in this book and go back in the videos and the podcasts and things that I share and learn the Eightfold Path, that you learn this really closely. We have plenty of resources to be able to help you, and it's all available at no cost, whether it's books, videos, podcasts, personal guidance, audiobooks, all these things are available for you. So if you'd like to get plugged into these teachings to be able to use the resources to be able to learn and grow, there's opportunity for you to be able to do that. You can get this first book by downloading it from our website for free. You can take it and go print it yourself. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon and you'll be able to get it that way. So if you'd like to get help, there's plenty of opportunity for you to do that. And this is just one teaching that helps you to be able to understand what love is. But you shouldn't put the expectation on yourself that you're going to go out that door and now all of a sudden you're going to be able to practice true love. Because the first part is just understanding it intellectually, but then another part, which takes many months and maybe even years, to help you learn how to practice true love. So that's where you need the additional training to be able to help your mind to now be able to practice true love. Because it's one thing to sit here and talk about not putting expectations on people, but it's a whole nother thing to go out there in the world and actually do it. So you shouldn't put the expectation on yourself that you're going to be able to now practice true love perfectly. It's going to take time for you to, over time, to gradually train your mind to be able to do this. So let me pause one more time to see if you guys have any questions, because if not, I'm going to end class, but let me just see if you guys have any questions. Yes, sir. It's on now.
On?
Yep.
Okay. I have a question about what you said with the unconditional happiness, whether you reach your goals or not. So the question is like when your happiness is conditional and you have like the cravings, so that's kind of the motivation and the reason you have the goals in the first place. And if you're the same happy, whether you reach the goals or not, so the question is, how would the goal come in the first place? Like, what would be the motivation and what will create this goal?
Yeah, what motivates your decision making in the enlightened mental state is wise decisions, or what we call discernment, right? So like the Buddha, he had the goal of his teachings reaching the entire world. but he understood it wasn't going to be in his lifetime that it was going to happen, because he taught in a very small region of the world that spoke a very regional language, that he wasn't able to share his teachings, and travel wasn't so easy and all these other things. So he had the goal to share his teachings with the entire world, but he knew it wasn't going to be during his lifetime. So he made wise decisions each day to share his teachings, and he knew that eventually they would be preserved and translated into other languages, and eventually they would reach the entire world over the course of many generations. So right now, what you're used to is having a certain want, having a certain expectation, a certain craving. And now you can only work towards something if you want something in return, because you get something in return. You get those pleasant feelings, or from the more money or the nicer car or the bigger house. And each time the mind chases after something, if it gets what it wants, it gets those pleasant feelings. And that's what the mind's chasing after. But when you understand that those pleasant feelings are ultimately ending you up in the painful feelings, that if you allow your mind to get conditional pleasant feelings, it's only a matter of time before the painful ones come. So if you get so excited about a brand new job and you chase after that brand new job and you get the job and you get pleasant feelings from it, well, when the company goes out of business or you get laid off, you're going to be angry or frustrated or sad. So you need to be able to see that these conditioned pleasant feelings that you're chasing after are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones, because you can only be happy if you get what you want. So your happiness is shrinking. So you need to be able to base your decisions in discernment of what would be wise for me to do here. Well, I'm living in this particular house, and let's just say you're living and you need more space because you have children and you're noticing that you need more space. Well, now let me just make this wise decision so that we can have more space. We have more family members. We need some more privacy. Let's get a bigger house. And I can afford this now because my income is maybe increased, and now you can actually afford it. Whereas if you base your decision in craving, you'll just want to get that big house to show off to your parents or your friends, and now you'll overextend yourself and you'll actually spend more money than you actually have. And now you're going to struggle because you don't have the resources that you need. Whereas if you base your decisions in discernment, now you can just make the decisions that are wise about your living environment, and you can do it when you have the resources to actually accomplish it. Where when you have craving, you'll tend to overextend yourself with things like finances. So what motivates your decisions by the time you get rid of these cravings is your wise decision making. And you can see how to do that and put together a wonderful life for yourself where you're not chasing after pleasant feelings, because those are ultimately dissatisfying, because you're going to end up in the painful feelings. Okay. Don't see any questions anywhere else. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just end by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. If you guys would like to learn more, there's opportunities for you to do that. Tonight at 9 p.m., I'm going to be teaching the same class here. It syncs up with the Sunday night walking market. So if there's people that would like to come to the evening class, I'm going to be teaching the exact same thing. I do this twice a day because, like right now, the people in Europe are sleeping. So if they'd like to attend our live streams and stuff, they have a live class that is available for them. And then also tonight at 6:30, I'm going to be doing meditation here. It syncs up with the Sunday night walking market, that if you'd like to come and just do some meditation and ask questions, I have an open question and answer session at 6:30 on Sundays. Next week, on Monday through Friday, I'm teaching a harmony and relationships course where from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day, I'm going to be teaching the teachings that you need to be able to develop harmony in all your relationships, whether they're personal or professional relationships. I'm going to be starting out tomorrow morning teaching the Eightfold Path, the core central teaching of the Buddha that is needed to really firmly get on the path and actually train your mind. I'm going to walk through that step by step. So you can come to any portion of this course that you like. You can come to the whole course. You can come to portions of it. You can attend here or you can attend through the live stream. It's really up to you, but I'm going to be teaching that all next week. And you'll find this course and all the other opportunities to learn and participate in our community on the bulletin board over there. And you'll also find it on our website as well, buddhadailywisdom.com. So if you'd like to get involved in learning some more, you'll be able to find those options on our website or the bulletin board, or you can come talk to me as well, and I'll help you get plugged in. So whatever you do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you next time, okay? Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.